Meeting to order. Now we have changes to the agenda, and we do have one change, 2.1. That is, we added item 8.18, the 2023 Okaloosa County School District's legislative priorities. I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments or discussion? So it passed unanimously. All right.
Dr. Kelly, real quick, on the thing there, it says 8.18, or was it 7.18? I just want to double check on that.
My note here from Ms. Mary says 8.18.
Okay.
But it is actually
Yes.
7.18. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bryant. All right, that brings us to Section 3, recognitions, and we don't have any this evening. Section 4, administrative personnel appointments. Again, we don't have any this evening. I see Dr. Hale giving hooray over there. Section 5, public comments. That would be our blue card section, and I did not receive any blue cards this evening. Section 6 was for the workshop only, staff and committee reports. Section 7, consent agenda. 7.1 is approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion.
I'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Evanchik. I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Gardner. Any comment, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And it passes unanimously. That brings us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. 8.1, employees on administrative leave. And 8.2, drop. 8.3, request to double fill the supervisory payroll department. 8.4, out of field report.
On 8.3, we need to vote on 8.3, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for that reminder. 8.3 is an action item, and that is for approval, recommended by the superintendent. All in favor?
No, I'll make a motion.
I need a motion. Thank
second.
you. I'm trying to rush us. I've been prompted that there's an important event of some type after this meeting. So I do need a motion and a second. Mr. Bryant made the motion. I need a second.
Here.
Seconded by
One more.
Dr. White. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? And it passes unanimously. 8.4 was out of field report for the 2022-2023 school year presented by Karen Peak and recommended by the superintendent for approval. It is an action item, so I need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Bryant moved
And she seconded.
and Mrs. Gardner seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. That brings us to 8.5, clear certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2022-2023 school year presented by Karen Peak and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
Move it.
Moved by Dr. White. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Evanchik. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passed unanimously. 8.6, personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval. I need a motion.
I'll move it.
Moved by Ms. Gardner.
In unison.
Seconded by Ms. Evanchik.
Yep. That'll work.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. 8.7, employment separations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Any discussion? All in favor?
We need a motion.
Oh, I need a motion, thank you.
I'll move it.
I need a second.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Evanchik and seconded by Dr. White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. 8.8, employee transfers presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Any discussion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Dr. White,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Bryant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. 8.8, employee suspension presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
I'll move 8.9.
Thank you. Dr. White moves 8.9.
And I'll
Any
second it.
Seconded by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. 8.10, reinstatement and reimbursement of sick leave due to line-of-duty illness, injury, or medical examination, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
I'll
Need
move
a
it.
motion? Moved by Ms. Evanchik,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Gardner. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. 8.11, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
So
I'll move
moved.
it.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Gardner, seconded by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Need a motion. I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. And that brings us down to Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business. And first time I haven't been able to give this report. I turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we, like I said this morning at the workshop, we did have a meeting right after the workshop. Yes, some of you, I think
I think Eva's got
some
copies.
have copies.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. White was in.
I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bryant.
Happy
Okay.
with this?
You take that one, that was extra. So if we take a look, I'm just going to kind of go over real, just the highlights. So task order number 2, these are district-wide security upgrade project, phase 1, the fence. And if you look down, a lot of these items are done, and we're just in the ending phases of it, but there is some issues with at Northwood, Florosa, and Pryor. I won't necessarily say issues, but we're waiting on the best cores and Salto installations on the new gates. We're running into an issue of them being able to be delivered, like with a lot of things going on in the world today, with the supply and demand, just getting the items here. This is one reason why when we do the complete changeover to the district, it's not going to be until the following year because we just can't get the product here in a timely manner. There was also, at Eglin's front office, they were reviewing the temperature data collected, and rebalancing work is complete. Also, additional HVAC unit installation in the lobby is the backup plan. If we look at task order number 4, and this is the Baker kitchen renovation and the Pryor Middle School renovation. As we know, the Baker renovation is done. The Pryor is just about done. As a matter of fact, we are hoping, Dr. Smith, if I'm not mistaken, we're hoping to be able to start serving out of there at the end of the month. So that's going to be exciting. There was some issues with getting Okaloosa Gas in there, which they got their installation complete. Rooftop units and fans are installed. They had to do a new lift station and a grease trap. We were running into an issue of getting that delivered, so all we did is go basically across town to Edwin's and got theirs, since theirs isn't really needed right now. And we got their grease trap installed for Pryor so they could use their kitchen here, like we said, at the end of the month. All the coolers and freezers are running, and the final HVAC and hood connections are being completed, and the final inspections are for next week. If we look down at task order number 12, district-wide sales tax construction projects, a lot of things are going on right now. I know all of y'all have probably been to Fort Walton Beach High School to see their multi-purpose room. It is really looking pretty awesome. It's amazing once they get that steel frame up and how quickly it goes. Crestview is, they got theirs up to just a little bit behind Fort Walton Beach High School, but that's kind of the plan, is staggered going. Baker School, the final building evaluation has been reached and the slab is formed. Electrical underslab rough-in activities are 90% complete and awaiting plumbing rough-in. One of the issues that we're running into is plumbers, just having plumbers. According to Joel, we hadn't had that issue in the past, but now that's been an issue, just getting, qualified plumbers to get in there. But they're pretty confident that once they get the plumbing teams in there, a lot of this will move pretty quickly. Choctawhatchee High School, if y'all saw Miss Heck's video, you can see that there's a lot of activity going on over there. 90% of the spread footings are in place. A redesign of the new sanitary and storm sewer system was received last week, and that will allow us to complete the remaining spread footing installation. Structure installation will begin this week, and the slab area has been backfilled and formed, and underground utility work for the slab is ongoing. And Niceville High School site demolition work began in early January. Classroom additions, Silver Sands is moving right along. They actually got the roof on and everything. We're hoping that will be done. We'll be ready for classrooms beginning at the beginning of next school year. Also, the district did a good job of doing a video of construction projects, and they happened to be at Silver Sands for that one, so that was a really good video to show people what's going on. And if you drive back behind, if you're heading down to Bruner Middle School, you can actually see all the happenings back behind there. So Elliott Point Elementary School, again, a lot of work going on there. Exterior CMU wall construction is complete and cast in place beams placed in mid-December. Interior CMU walls are 85% complete, and brick veneer began to allow for backfilling on the site. Crestview High School, again, that project is moving right along. Once those walls get up, people are starting to see the product that's happening there, and they were doing a lot of work during the holidays too, so it was good to see that. The big one that really happened really fast was Laurel Hill School. When I went up there in December, at the beginning of December, they just had the concrete foundation down. Went back there the other day, and they already got walls up and everything. It's moving really fast. Of course, our cafetoriums are underway. Edwin's, if you have a chance to go by there, you can see that the concrete foundations were poured in mid-December. Slab form work installation is about 75% complete. And Wright Elementary, the 30-day site preloading is complete with no settling recorded, and underground utility work has begun. Ruckle Middle School, the project has been given bid to a local general contractor, and a contract has been written, and construction fence was installed in late December. And then the last three, Plough, Bob Sykes, and Shalimar. Plough, the project has been bid to local general contractors, and a contract has been written. The same with Bob Sykes and Shalimar, so we should soon be seeing some work over in those three schools. If you go to task order number 16, roofing and canopy projects at Choctawhatchee High School and Lewis School. Lewis will be pretty easy. It's kind of going to be set up like Pryor Middle School with their front entrance. Choctaw has a lot of history, so a lot of input is being made into how that's being designed. But Lewis and the Choctaw roofs, they're 100% complete. And the GMP for the front entry projects will be submitted in February, February for approval. Task order number 17, roof replacement at Blue Water Elementary and Walker. Design work for these projects reached the construction document level, and estimating process has begun. As y'all know, we were going to do metal roofs there, but because of high cost of metal roofs, we are going to go to do regular shingle roofs there, and we hope to start that project in the summertime when the kids are out of school, and that way they won't be interrupted. Plus, if we start looking at the springtime, all the testing that's going to go on, we don't need to interrupt. So it looks like we're going to be looking at a summertime time frame to get that done. And Richburg School Task Order number 19, the architect provided DD drawings that were reviewed by the school. We are awaiting feedback to allow for completion of the design. And again, this is exciting because we have that, for those that remember Richburg Middle School, Richburg Junior High, that area was the front office. And we have not been able to use that area for quite a while because it is uninhabitable, so we can't even use it. But once we get all this done, that will be fully functional, and it will be a very much needed part of the school to, as you know, for the general public out there, Richburg is one of our special needs schools, and this will help with their mission of providing a good education to all of our students. Task order number 20, priority roofing projects, design work progressed to this CD level for Longwood Elementary re-roofing project, and a GMP was submitted. Validation is complete and approval is set for 1/9/23. And CD drawings have been received for Fort Walton Beach High School, Silver Sands, Laurel Hill, Crestview High School, and Richburg for their roofing projects included in the priority list. We are reviewing the drawings and beginning the estimating process. And then finally, DD drawings were received for Niceville and Ruckle roofing projects and were reviewed. Feedback is being provided to the AE to allow CD level drawings to be produced. And then task order number 21 is the Longwood School renovation, and design and development drawings were received and being reviewed, and school meetings have taken place to review ongoing design issues and finishes. Task order number 22, time and materials district-wide ADA sidewalk and parking lot striping. We have the site designs have been completed, and the sidewalk and stripings are bidding projects to local general contractors. And then task order number 23, high school auditorium upgrades. So far, the field data has been collected, and they are working on sound and lighting specialty designs to complete for pricing.
Is that for every high school doing something?
I believe it was for 4 of them, so it's going to be Niceville, Fort Walton, Crestview, and Choctaw. Yeah.
And so Baker didn't request any changes, or there's not any changes there?
Dr. Smith, can you answer that? I don't recall the reason why they're not on there, so.
This was an attempt to refurbish the 4 high schools that were built about in the 70s. The Baker auditorium was rebuilt in the 90s. It's much newer, much more modern, so we didn't feel like it needed the refresh that the other 4 did.
Okay, because I know they're having trouble with their sound system.
It's something we can look at, but the task order was the 4 other big high schools.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
All right, and then, let's see, where were we at? Task order number 24, central administration complex renovation. As you know, during the break, we did asbestos abatement in here. You could definitely tell when you walked in over on the executive side there, you could definitely tell it happened. But this is great because now this moves us getting closer to actually doing phase 1 of the central office redesign that's much needed. Task order number 26, time and materials asbestos abatement, which I just mentioned, that is completed. Task order number 27, Bruner Middle School chilled water piping and HVAC project. Field anyways, the work is now being done, and that was done before the winter break, and the scope of the project is being more fully developed. So this will be a future project. Task order number 28, district-wide security phase 2 security upgrades. Data gathering and detailed site visits were performed at every campus to establish the scope of work for this effort. And the field work is now complete. The information is being tabulated, and we will review the options with the district as well as budget information, so a decision will be made on the path forward. Task order number 29 is the CTE renovations at Crestview High School and Titan Commercial Building. And right now, There has been a meeting with the CTE leadership that took place last week to discuss the final details of the Fort Walton Beach nursing program requirements, and a meeting is scheduled to this week to review the Crestview High School AI building scope. And re-roofing of this building in Crestview is an issue that we will have to resolve. The Triumph grant process is ongoing and will require additional information to proceed successfully. So the money that's being used for that is coming from the Triumph grant. So task order number 30, this is the final one of the night. Time and materials construction of new electrical services at Lewis School and Crestview High School with upgrades at Niceville, and initial field work has been completed. Design is progressing, and additional site visits occurred last week to finalize details. And just some additional topics, tomorrow night at 4 o'clock right here in this office, or in this room, we'll be having the Citizens Oversight Committee, and then just some other information that will be coming up with upcoming GMP projects. And with that, Madam Chair, that's my report tonight.
Thank you so much for that thorough report. I know that you've enjoyed being on that committee so far, and I know that I did, but I know that they are enjoying having you
Well, thank
on
you.
there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, that brings us down to 10.2, program number 6, task order number 20, GMP for the 2022-2023 Priority Roofing Projects Phase 1 for Longwood Elementary that you mentioned would be on our agenda tonight. That's presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent for approval. So I do need a motion.
Move it.
Moved by Dr. White. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And it passed unanimously. So 10.3, program number 6, task order number 12, district-wide sales tax construction projects, prime contract change order, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bryant. Need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. White. Any discussion? Call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passed unanimously. That brings us down to number 11, attorney's business.
No report tonight, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. And now we have 12, superintendent's business. 12.1 is out-of-state student trip request. And I know that now we have 12.2. I think our superintendent has some other items to address with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. You know, this morning we covered a number of topics, some of which included the textbook adoption process for social studies, the PD day that we had for our teachers and administrators this past Friday, as well as an update on controlled open enrollment. But I also wanted to update the board this evening as it pertains to the Department of Justice release settlement agreement with our school district, and that release came out on December 21st, that day that we left for Christmas break. So I wanted to be able to come back to the board and just kind of share with you exactly where we are. The settlement agreement was the result of an investigation into how the district responded to reported allegations of abuse and improper restraint and seclusion of students with disabilities within the school district. The investigation timeframe reached back to the 2015-2016 school year. As you know, when I was appointed superintendent, many of you were on this board, and the work that we've done since, we took several steps from that point. One of the things that we did is we had the leadership at the state level, the Exceptional Student Education Department of Education come in, and we had them look at some of the things that we were doing in our school district. Specifically, we had them speak with our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and we had them review our policies and our practices. And they gave us information about how we were doing those things. And of course, we put those practices, those policies into place. One of the things that happened as a result of this investigation is the Office of Educational Opportunity of the Department of Justice. One of the things that they did do was recognize that prior to the initiation of its investigation, that the district had already taken steps to strengthen its provision of services to students with disabilities, address its implementation of restraint and seclusion, and respond to allegations of physical and verbal abuse of students. And I think that's something that we've taken very seriously. This school board has taken very seriously, and it's something that we'll continue to take very seriously. I wanted to remind the board of some of the actions that we've taken over the last number of years as well. One of the things that we did is we looked at our district staff, and we did add a director over ESE, and that is right now held by Ms. Kathy Ard, who's come in and done a great job, and she has I'd say a more robust staff to be able to manage that department and to be of service to our schools. Additionally, we have created an intervention coordinator, and this intervention coordinator is going to be responsible for the oversight and compliance of training for ESE teachers and ESE paraprofessionals. We've also hired additional behavior analysts and interventionists to be able to help our general education teachers and our ESE teachers as it pertains to helping them with managing behaviors. We've had increased training of school-based crisis teams in safety care, and that's to enhance our employees' ability to work with de-escalation and to make sure that we handle restraints properly. We've looked at ESE paraprofessionals, which they now have a day-long professional development dedicated specifically to them and their job responsibilities. We've also increased training for our bus drivers and our bus aides as it pertains to de-escalation. Our ESE teachers now have more additional opportunities for professional development, and we've increased the number of staffing specialists, and that's important as it determines the ability to oversee compliance of eligibilities of ESE students and IEPs. And I say that as a brief summary of the things that we've done. I will say that we cooperated fully with the Department of Justice and had a full debrief with them in December, and it's something that we absolutely take serious. We'll continue to put steps forward to continue to get better in this area. I was appreciative for them to acknowledge the steps that we've already put in place, but also understanding that we can absolutely continue to get better.
Any discussion or comment? Thank you, Superintendent. And I do remember that era in our history, and I very much appreciate the steps that you and your staff have put in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could just point out, that certainly, Mr. McInnes, you can fill in the gaps here, but the school board made a number of policy changes, and I also know that the agenda was modified and changed so that items now not all grouped together, and now they're considered individually. And beyond that, I also know that there were many procedures that were changed administratively in addition to all the things that you mentioned, Mr. Superintendent. So thank you for all that good work, sir.
Yes, sir.
If I remember correctly, Dr. White, you were chair during some of those years, and we do thank you for putting some of those things in place that I remember led to fuller transparency and to greater understanding of exactly what the legal requirements were. So thank you all for that. That brings us down to Area 13, and this morning I began with my compadre to my right, Ms. Marty Gardner. So tonight I'll start with Mr. Bryant.
Just one thing, Madam Chair. Go Georgia. Go Georgia Bulldogs.
I knew that was going to work into conversation somewhere.
Why, what's happening?
Is that?
Something
Well, we're
happening?
only playing for a national championship for the
Oh,
second
that.
year in a row.
That, okay, that. There you
Is that
go.
all you have tonight, Mr.
Yes,
Bryant?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for your input. Dr. White.
Well, with that, I'll just say that I made several remarks this morning, and I just asked folks maybe to take a look at the workshop comments, and that'll cover my business tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, I mentioned this morning some things about Ms. Evanchik and what she did going back, so I'll let her start with that, if you would. I'll be last. You next.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mentioned that earlier today that I went to Jacksonville. It was really neat
That
to
was
go
my
back.
segue. It didn't work too well.
That was your segue. I did want to add to what I said this morning about it's National Mentoring Month, and I did check into the fact that we have 60 mentors with our Take Stock. That's huge, and we
great.
want to continue to get more mentors and all that. Also from the Public Schools Foundation, want to go ahead and do a kind of save the date. March 4th, we're going to have our career and college fair. And it's one of our big events that the foundation has done. It's become very, very popular. So put that on your calendar because a lot of people come out. We want the parents to come out with their students and wonderful information, and our business partners and all get into it. So March 4th is coming up, and we're planning that now with the foundation. So that'll be great. I always love that day. It's terrific. Thanks.
Ms.
I
Gardner.
would just remind everybody that this coming Saturday, January the 14th, the Martin Luther King Jr. Oratorical Poster Contest will take place. It's very inspiring to see those little ones and the older students presenting these speeches that they have put together. So 10 o'clock, Choctawhatchee High School, come out and join.
Very-
And good luck, Mr. Bryant, to your Bulldogs.
Very nice, thank you. And I just have a couple of things. First of all, this morning at our workshop, I mentioned that we do owe a debt of gratitude to a number of our Okaloosa County employees who did actually work over the holiday, many getting their rooms ready and doing various things. But I do have a list of people I would like to call out, not disparaging any other group, but just because I happen to have these names, and these people worked diligently over the holiday. These were members of our maintenance crew. From the South Zone, I'd like to call their names if you don't mind. These were schools that needed work over the time, and the folks employed with us who took their time to go work on those schools. So from the South Zone, OTC had freezing pipes. So did Fort Walton Beach High School, Kenwood, Choctaw, Mary Esther, Edwins, Elliott Point. The personnel who worked on those schools from the South Zone, thank you to Dennis Bowling, Clint Harris, Brian Griffin, Darrell Willard, and Paul Powell. In the Central Zone, you might not be surprised to know that the schools that had freezing pipe repairs were Destin Middle and Destin Elementary, the Cook Chill at Central, Ruckle, Niceville High School, Edge, Plough, Shalimar. And the people who did those repairs, thank you very much to Adam Howell, Paul Palmer, Joey Bonta, Lee Parker, and Luke Mitchell. And in the North Zone, the schools that had frozen pipes, Antioch, Baker, Bob Sykes, Crestview, Davidson, Laurel Hill, Shoal River, Southside, and Walker. And the gentlemen that we can thank for keeping those up to date, Kevin Candyke, Gavin Campbell, Philip Reed, Clint Paul, Cress Eisenberg, and Morris Jones. Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to those people, and to say a big apology to, I forgot to ask our union representation if they had anything they wanted to say, and they did. So I would like to invite Jordan, if she would, to come and give us her information.
Good evening.
Hello.
I know we spent a lot of time this morning talking about the legislative session and things that FADS and the superintendent and the school board associations were going to do. And Mr. Chambers did mention that he had spoken to us to try to make sure that we had the same type of message, because we believe what the biggest thing is, we need to make our voices louder. We need to show that we're on the same page, and it's one thing for them to hear from the unions. It's one thing for them to hear from the superintendent something else, and it's another thing for them to hear from the school board. So what we wanted to do is try to lead more by example and say, we're united in what our main messages are. Are we going to have some different messages? Yes. Of course, we know things can come up in legislative session that the union's going to try to work for or try to, work against. In some instances, we know how that goes. I just kind of wanted to show you that even as our state FEA organization, we have 6 critical points that we're going to be working with. And our 6 critical priorities are obviously teacher pay, not only for beginning teachers, but also for our veteran teachers. We want to work on continuing to provide qualified, experienced teachers and try to give them the opportunity to have more long-term contracts and get rid of annual contracts is something that's huge. You want to talk about teacher retention, give a teacher more than an annual contract, and we're going to start seeing more teachers being retained is how we kind of feel. We're going to protect academic freedom. We have a lot of legislation that's been coming out about different things that can be taught and that supposedly we teach when we know that that doesn't happen, especially in Okaloosa County. We want to be able to have more of our educational freedom. We want to enhance our retirement system, make people not have to sit out after they retire or get penalized for trying to come back early. We want to prioritize more teacher-led assessments and less standardized tests. As we are seeing, there's actually, if you added up, more hours in testing that's happening right now versus what we've had in the past when you start talking about the fast tests that come up and everything else that we're doing, which is great. We're all on board with us having to have something as we go along to kind of guide our way, but it's really more testing that's happening. It's not exactly the way that we all thought it would kind of come out. And then we want to be able to try to respect more of our local decisions, kind of give things back to the districts, because we know that our needs in the Panhandle are completely different than the needs that might be happening in Broward County or Miami-Dade or anything around there. We have different needs. And so I know that the superintendent, he's going to be having different types of conversations by representatives. I know that Mr. Bryant is going to be having his at the delegate assembly this Wednesday, correct? And so he's going to have some things. I've also have my own separate meeting, so we're going to have the same kind of unified message to start off with, so they're hearing a strong voice from Okaloosa County, and hopefully that'll carry on to our state legislator. And I ask that you guys help us try to encourage more of not just our teachers, but our community members into reaching out to our state legislators. And to be able to do that, we will be looking into sending some teachers and educational sports staff to Tallahassee like we have in the past. We're going to try to amp it up just a little bit more and try to get our voices heard and for them to really know what Okaloosa County is all about. So I just wanted to give you guys the update since you did such a good job this morning giving one.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
that's
Thank you,
great.
Jordan.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate singing the same song. Thank you for that. Anybody from the district staff? No? All right, then that brings us to 14, public comment. And again, I have no yellow cards for this section. And that brings us to what I know Mr. Bryant and others have been anxious for today, our adjournment. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
they're doing the national anthem right now.
Yeah.
My husband says.
Hurry up, you can get it on your phone. Thank you so much. At that, we are adjourned.